Okay.
besides the $500 filing fee.
Thank you.
But when when they submit the plans, we require them to do all the work. They're gonna set, I mean, basically, we look at what they did and decide whether they cheated or not. Because, I mean, we aren't gonna redo the work on it.
No, what we do in plan review or plat review, excuse me, is review what they submitted. And then our team gets together and starts going, oh, did they put the right size water line in? Is this drainage study complete?
Okay, that's the preliminary plat, right?
No, that's
No,
the final
fine.
plat. Preliminary plat comes first. That's the overall development. And say it's a small preliminary plat for like Creekside Estates that was 7 lots.
Right.
They have to submit a preliminary drainage study. They don't have to have a full drainage study. They submit where they're gonna show their water line, where they're gonna show there's not sewer there, where the entrance is gonna be. So we review the paving and drainage plans, their drainage study,
Right.
and then their water plan. And so when they submit that, on the initial preliminary plat, there's not the improvement fee cost, because we don't get those improvement plans until they submit the final plat.
I thought they submitted $500 at that time.
They do. They submit the preliminary plat is $500 and $500 a
And
lot.
then when they come in and they put their water line
The 500, they have to submit the filing fee and the plat application for their final plat. That's already in the ordinance. Everything in the black is already in the ordinance.
in, right,
The only thing that we're adding is section D,
right.
the
And when,
engineering plan review.
but when we look at the final plat, and actually I haven't been coming to those, because didn't know when they were, but,
They're included every plat review, but depends on what submittals we get in.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
just didn't know it.
Yes.
Or didn't remember it. But when we do that, I mean, the hydraulic study or whatever those studies are, they did all the work.
Correct.
We're just saying that they did it.
And
And it doesn't require the time to do it or to review it, that it requires, it doesn't require the time to review it that it did to do it. I mean,
it actually does, and I can give a couple examples. Kendall, one of the members of our audience that's worked on a few final plats, Chickasaw Crossing is a good example. The development agreement that we had because of the water and the water availability and the water pressures. And we came up with a development agreement after reviewing back and forth many times
right.
on that hydraulic study and analysis. We spent many hours on that.
$500 won't cover that.
No, that's why
I mean,
we are adding the engineering plan review.
Alex,
So once they submit it, we have to get it to our contract engineer and say, hey, we need to make sure this drainage study meets the requirements of our ordinance.
yeah, what I'm saying is another $500 isn't going to cover what time we spent in Kimball doing this. They're doing that, and that's part of the city services of being the city. I mean, our budgeting from our taxes. Do we want to try to set this up so that in the instances that require a lot of work, we're capturing this, or do we want to acknowledge that most of the time we're not going to hit it? But when we do, it's got to be something the city brings in from our other sales. We're moving in that many houses. And that's just the thought I had when I read this, and I don't know that I don't want it. I just discussing what we're doing here. And
Well, the final plat just went from 500 to a maximum of 1,000.
Mhm.
Let's be honest with it.
Yeah, but it's the wording of it, the layout of this form seems weird to me. Like you've got a final plat, $500 plus 5 per lot. It doesn't say that the engineering is final plat only. I'm not a developer, so I don't understand that language to say that. And then you're not going to use, it's possible that you don't use all 5 of those options. Why would you not just increase the final plat fee, the flat, or put it in with that same line? I mean,
I think that the reason
because you're doing the work to review the final plat, and then we're adding
the
line
improvement,
items.
On the small edition, the
Creekside Estates.
Creekside Estates,
Mhm.
they're $500 and they won't get hit with this.
Right, and I get that, because it's sort of
All 500 here, they'll get hit with $100.
optional line items of sorts.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct. So that's why we separated, so that's why it says per plan set. So, and I know we need to probably make a little adjustment in that wording, but
to say that it's final plat only, or by the time you get here, this is gonna come up perhaps, or,
yeah, if you go back to the staff report, I think that it explains it pretty well. And Kevin can go, he did that staff report, did a great job on it, explaining that upon the final plat submittal, depending on what improvement
but if
plans
you're
are
reading that in the
required.
code, you're not gonna have this.
I understand what you're saying, so what we need to do is, by your suggestion, is be a little bit more clear under that.
When
I
that
think
kicks in.
maybe D should actually be under like a subsection, it should be
B1.
B1.
Yeah, B1.
It should be B1.
And maybe even add the word final after the word engineering. Final plan review, because this only comes
It
up.
does, it
you know
does
what I
say
mean?
final plat engineering plan review.
That
Maybe
does, this
that,
doesn't.
oh, that
This
doesn't.
doesn't, no,
Okay,
it just
well
says engineering plan review. And I understand it's gonna be B1, but even just engineering final
then final plat
plat review,
engineering
yeah.
plan review. Okay, I can make that
Just
note
the
as the
no
slide.
confusion.
You might even put those water sewer paving as a bullet or something underneath that. I mean,
Okay,
just to clarify that you eliminate the commas and the need for all that. It could be up to 5.
okay.
Uh, Is there any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll proceed.
Just changing the format, we can still vote on whether or not we want to implement $100 per improvement. Correct.
Well, I think we'll, subject to the amendments that have been requested. I'll accept the motion. There you go, thank you. I make a motion that we approve the amendment of 153.012 filing fees to include a provision as B1 and 2, 1 being final plat, $500 plus $5 per lot, and B2 being a
That would be, then just be B1. That would be B, and then this would be B1.
I think so. I think if you're gonna have decimal numbers to it, you gotta have 1 and 2.
B1A, lowercase,
That's work.
A, B, C, D, E, F.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can use ones or not, but break it down so you've got B is final plat, and then under that, you got A, initial filing, $500 plus $5 per lot, and at time of final engineering review, or final submission for engineering review, $100 per plan set, and the sets set out. That makes sense?
Yes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify with a raised hand. Be unanimously approved. Thank you, Jim. Item number 10 is discussion and possible action on the preliminary plat of Blue Ridge South and replat of Common Area A and Common Area B of Blue Ridge Estates Phase 1.
Janae Greenlee with the Planning Department. This is a request for a preliminary plat of Blue Ridge South and a replat of Common Area A and B of Blue Ridge Phase 1. We previously approved the rezoning, that was probably a couple months ago. It went from agriculture to E3. So each lot has to maintain that 27,000 square foot lot requirement in the E3 zoning that's been approved, which all 13 of these lots do meet that requirement. This is a continuation of the Blue Ridge subdivision. It is on the west side of Blue Ridge Avenue, the 13 lots. It came before Planning Commission, this preliminary plat. Initially, we had some work to do. The engineer and the developer went back and did the work that was required. There was some questionability about the buildable area on these lots. They went ahead and put the pad sites on each one of the lot to show that it will fit that single family house of their general layout, floor layout plan and square footage of those homes. The preliminary drainage plan and study was completed, meets our preliminary requirements. All these lots will be served by on-site sewer, so they'll all have septic systems. Takes a half acre for a on-site sewer. Just as the remainder of Blue Ridge is all served by on-site sanitary sewer. The water will utilize the 8-inch existing line along Blue Ridge Avenue and the 6-inch line on Southeast 44th. All the lots that front on Blue Ridge Avenue will come off of that 8-inch line that's already there. So that meets the requirement for the water. There is one lot that fronts on Southeast 44th that will utilize that 6-inch line. Access to all the lots will be off one of the lots, Southeast 44th, the remainder off Blue Ridge Avenue, and then Southeast 42nd as it curves up to the northeast. There's 3 lots that take access off of that road. They've met all of our preliminary requirements. They are requesting 2 variances to Chapter 153, one for the water line that requires the 12-inch upsize on section line roads. They want to utilize the existing 6-inch. Like I stated, there's only one lot that will be utilizing that 6-inch on Southeast 44th. There is right now, there's no continued development to the west of this site. It's open, vacant agricultural land. So that variance can be supported by planning staff. And then the other variance is the 12-inch, and I wrote down the other one. The curb and gutter. Thank you. The curb and gutter, the E3 requires curb and gutter, and we did this with the Blue Ridge 3 because Blue Ridge 1 and 2 is all bar ditch. There is no curb and gutter. Midstream, during this development, we had changed the requirement in E3 to require curb and gutter. We did allow them to continue with the bar ditches in Blue Ridge Phase 3 that we did the preliminary plat in. And so in this one, they're also requesting that variance. Staff recommends an approval for the preliminary plat of Blue Ridge South and the replat of common area A and B. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant engineer is here as well.
Well, it says in here that we pay for that. Where's the nearest 12-inch water line to this place? This location?
The nearest 12-inch?
Yeah, code says it's got to be 12-inch and we're going to allow a variance. Where's the nearest 12?
I am not sure there is a 12-inch anywhere along Southeast 44th Street. We can take a look at it.
The water tower is right
There's a
there.
water tower at Blue Ridge. And the applicant's here if you want to ask any further questions.
Aid in this, if you will.
Yeah.
Good evening, Louis Foggy, Crafton Toll, 300 Point Parkway, Yukon, Oklahoma. There is no 12-inch main on 44th Street. There is a 16-inch main coming from the east, along right here up to our boundary. But there's only a 6-inch main on Southwest 44th Street at this moment.
There's a 16-inch main, you
Yeah.
said?
Yep, right down here.
That connects to the water tower.
Yes.
Yeah.
It got extended based off whenever they developed Blue Ridge Phase 1. They extended that 16-inch main.
So just the one house don't use that, right? That's correct.
Lot 1,
Yes, well, we were tying into that 6-inch main right there.
so lots 10 or 11 kind of interesting, aren't they?
Yes, we know that can be a challenge developing, and our client is aware of that. But they're known for building, and they understand that if we need retaining walls, we might have to build some type of retaining.
Is that based on topography? Carl?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a canyon right there. Closer to where the steep is.
Lot 10 has
The ridge is 5, probably
10, 15 foot of relief underneath the pad. Is there
Mm.
15 foot of relief underneath that?
Roughly that, yes. And our client is aware of that.
Lot 10 has 15-foot difference between one side of the house and the other.
From that side to that side, it's 15 feet elevation difference.
You can do it.
You can, not my house. That's great.
How do we feel about putting all those septic lines on those slopes above that pond?
We're confident that we'll make it work and all that. We will meet ODQ standards and City of Newcastle's regulations.
Well, I don't know the details of Newcastle's regulations, but I know of none that say you've got to have flow off or rates of flow restricted by
But
something.
you could put septic lines on a slope. There's no rule that says you can't do that.
Right. But when we know that they're so steep that it's gonna cause us.
Well, I mean, there's places to do it. I can see places to do it, but that lot 10, it's a,
Yeah.
you might not have bargained to sell that one.
Yes, our client is aware of that.
Is there any way we can say you've gotta have piers?
Say whatever you want, but it's on them. It's not on us.
Yeah, but it's on the citizen who's gonna be our citizen down the road.
Is the developer doing all the fill for that?
Whoever builds the house will do the fill.
30 grand of dirt before you build. Yeah.
I will add though, that when we get a building permit application in, we require them to submit their ODQ permit for their on-site treatment. They have to show us that.
Right.
I mean,
I understand.
ODQ has to give us that permit before we issue a building permit.
Do y'all, do we require structure, what's the, I'm trying to ask, what's the process for, so like on lot 10, is there a process in place where y'all require a structural engineer to provide y'all with the fact that a house can go on there?
If they have to build a retaining wall that's 4 feet or greater in height, they have to provide engineering plans with their building permit.
Well, but where they're building the house, there's not gonna be a retaining wall in the
Underneath
middle
the
of
house.
the pad. No, they're gonna come in and pile up
Sure.
Go ahead.
10 feet.
Well, that's what, so, you know, I didn't know if there
Save
was-
us all.
For the record, Kendall Dillon with Crafton Toll. As Lloyd kind of pointed out, specifically with that one lot, there obviously is a ton of relief across that lot. I think it's pretty ambitious. Our clients, obviously, they build hundreds of homes every year. They certainly know the building process. Even though I say it's ambitious, it certainly can be designed and structurally built and be fine. It's fairly expensive to do so. In regards to what's before you tonight, this is just the preliminary plat. Now we're talking about code issues, and so I think there's a little bit of an overlap. But to the point,
We're gonna be there in short order.
sure.
Right?
And I think that's great. And like I say, if they're going to build a house on it, they're going to have to get the structural engineers involved. As Janae mentioned, anything that's over 4 foot has to be structurally engineered as far as retaining wall. And then I'm not sure on the building permit side with any kind of other testing that may or may not be required from a building permit side, but that certainly would be the code that would address that as opposed to any conditions on a preliminary plat. But full, like I say, our clients, we've discussed this lot. It, in theory, has the space, can be the aerobic system or the septic. The slope has nothing to do with that. Again, DEQ will sign the plat, so I don't think we have any concerns on that. There's separation from water bodies and everything else that's in DEQ regs. We'll have to meet all that, which we do. I think the only issue that I think is the concern is, again, structurally, but I can tell you that structurally it can be designed and you can put a house on it and it can be
Well,
done. So,
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
yeah.
And, engineering can do amazing things.
Mhm.
It's just that I've seen a lot of times when the builder comes in and he piles up dirt and builds less dirt than this and builds on it and the slab cracks.
Sure. And that can
if
happen.
If they'll put in piers and.
That can happen on 3.
That's exactly right. I mean, the reality of it is you can go out there and have no fill or 2 foot of fill on junk and you're going to have problems.
Well,
So that's the reason you have to, at some point as a community, I mean, it's a builder's responsibility to do it. Now, you all obviously protect the public. There's certain realms in which you do it. But when it comes to whether or not structurally outside of the building code, then it's interesting territory. But your building code addresses.
Can we have you put some requirements, specifications on that lot for building on it, so the builder has to meet it?
Well, and that's fine, and I don't know but I don't know that you can put conditions on a preliminary plat for the construction of the house.
How many acres is that?
What
Is it more than 0.44?
Are you talking about the lot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that lot is 3.21 acres. So there's more than that. It actually
Well,
conforms.
no, what I was getting at is why instead of asking for a variance on the parkland requirement, why not make that a,
I don't think we're asking for a
No,
variance on
they're
the
gonna
parkland.
pay.
what, okay.
Yeah, it's
They're gonna pay to meet. I'm just,
Yeah.
if you take the house off of it and just make it a green area, a common area for the neighborhood, then you don't have to pay the fee and we don't have to worry about you building a house that's gonna fall into the pond.
Well,
And not you, I know you're not. the builder.
yeah. Again, and I'm not trying to be disagreeable. And like I say, if we can come up with reasonable language, I guess we can. My only point is we are kind of in uncharted waters because
We can have this conversation again.
Sure.
Is what we're trying to tell
Yeah,
you.
well,
We don't have any problem
Yeah.
talking about
Final
this,
plat will
addressing
come
it.
before.
and the
you.
final
But
plat.
we're warning you that this conversation is going to come up again.
Sure.
Is that fair?
I think that's fair. And again, the only thing, like I say, but we do have building code that handles these issues versus subdivision regulations, zoning, and plating issues. And to me, what we're discussing falls clearly on the building code side, has nothing to do with the plat. So, but we certainly respect the point of let's make sure that we're covered, the public's. So we can do whatever we want on the building permit side structurally to provide, and you all understand that it's designed right and it's going to be constructed right. So we're agreeable to do it.
I'm also of the mind that we don't have to approve a plat that we don't think is buildable.
Sure.
And that's one of my concerns here, but I do believe it's buildable.
Yeah.
It's just, we're gonna have to have some standards.
Right.
So as you talk to your client, you can tell them, we need to put some specs on this to make the
Understood.
planning commission push up. And
Understood.
I'll be glad to. Other than that, the other thing, you might go ahead and we can get it on the record on the gas line.
Yeah, you want to explain that to them?
Yeah, so we are aware about the gas line. We are working with the gas company right now. We believe that the gas line is abandoned, has not been flagged at all. We're in the process of getting it released with our client, and we're getting released with the company with a private agreement with our client.
So have you got a hold of those folks and talked to them?
We tried to contact them, but we're still trying to get it into contact.
Yeah,
Are they defunct?
they are.
Okay.
But even if it's a quiet title, but the line's abandoned,
Okay.
and just in the event, we plotted the pads on there so that you all
No,
can
I
see
see. I
that
see. where
regardless,
you're-
we can
Yep,
build it.
yep,
But
understood.
the line's abandoned, we're confident it's gonna be released. It's
Okay.
just a matter of.
Will that be removed? No.
No.
But if it's abandoned, there's nothing in it, so we don't care how close they are to it. Anything else? Is there any public comment on this? Or did you have anything else you wanted to?
No.
Okay, I'll call for public comment. I see none, we'll proceed. Entertain a motion? I have a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat of Blue Ridge South and the replat of the common areas A and common area B of Blue Ridge Estates Phase 1, and a vacation, or a variance. Get the right word out.
Vacation, huh?
Yeah.
We know what you're thinking about.
A variance as to the water line requirement, section line water line requirement, as to this track, and the curb and gutter requirement as to E3 zoning.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by raising hand. Be unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11 is a public hearing to consider an application for use permitted on review for conditional use permit for a commercial disposal well for Patsy Ann McMahon, trustee of the Juanita Grove Family Trust, Charter Oak Production Company, LLC. Juanita SWD North, or number 1, located in the southwest quarter of section 27, township 9 north, range 4 west of the Indian Meridian, in Plain County, Oklahoma. Property location is approximately 1/4 mile west of the intersection of Southwest 24th Street and State Highway 62, then north on Least Road and right at the Y to the existing location. This is UPOR 2024-003.
Good evening, Commissioners. Janae Greenlee with the Newcastle Planning Department. This is a request for a use permitted on review 2024-003 for Charter Oak Production Company for a conditional use for a commercial saltwater disposal well. As you can see on your screen, the far left is the surrounding land use aerial photo showing the pad site and the existing land uses. We have agricultural land uses to the north with the veterinary services that is at the far northeast of this whole lot, this whole 133 acres that's owned by the McMahons. And then we have to the east agriculture and the city cemetery. To the south, there's ag and also estate single-family dwelling. And to the west, there's also estate single-family dwelling. The existing zoning is zoned A, General Agricultural District. And there is, to the north, again, CC2 for the veterinary clinic. To the east, General Ag, as well as the south and the west is E1, Suburban Estate Residential District. The Newcastle 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map designates this as a mixed-use commercial residential designation. There is no land use requirement for this application, as this is not a rezoning. This is a use permitted on review for conditional use permit. Okay, so according to chapter 113.067, there are setback requirements pertaining to protected uses and adjacent property lines. We go through this slide every time there is a request for a conditional use permit for oil and gas and associated well. It is required to be 300 feet from the well bore to any adjacent property lines. It's required as well to be 460 feet from the pad site, edge of the pad site to any protected use, and also 660 feet from the well bore to any protected uses.
That's an example, not the actual.
That's correct. This
Okay.
is a diagram showing the setback requirements that are laid out in the oil and gas ordinance.
What's different from this when they were doing it and we had a room full of people complaining?
We have had no formal protest on this.
It is the
During-
same one though.
This is the same one. I can go back and give you just a little bit of background and history.
No, I think I remember.
Yeah, so in 2011, this was an existing well bore. It was for the Juanita. It was approved in September 12, 2011, by UPOR 2011-007. That was for an oil producing vertical well. So the well bore was there. We met with Charter Oak. We said, hey, this is a change of use. It's not laid out in the conditions of the existing UPOR. You're going to have to go back and ask for a new UPOR for a commercial saltwater disposal well. What happened was they ended up coming before the Planning Commission, but then had some protest regarding that, and so through OC, through the Corporation Commission, and they through this past year have worked out those conditions with the protest with the protesters and came to the agreement, and they finally got an order which acts as the permit. It's order number 743537. There's a copy of it in your packet. It's